Hello and welcome back to Antonia's Blissful Corner. Today I have the pleasure of having Dr. Barton Pratt, who is my coach, my life coach, meaning Dr. Pratt has basically been that person that has helped me along my journey for about a year now. He helped me with my book and basically like just gave me pointers because, like myself, he's introverted. So, welcome today's. This is my first attempt at podcasting, and this is also, like thanks to Dr. Pratt. So, Dr. Pratt, welcome to Antonia's Blissful Corner.
Thank you for having me, Antonia,
You're
and
welcome.
congratulations
Thank
on
you.
reaching another step in your life's work, supporting introverts, and also just getting the word out there about how wonderful Antonia is.
Thank you. So today we're just going to have like a conversation about introverts because what I'm realizing is that there's so many misconception about what an
Hmm.
introvert is, and
Yes.
it's really not that complicated.
No.
But for some reason, people think that it's like it's a disease or like, you're introverted. You're supposed to be in a corner somewhere, and it's not. It's just not. Dr. Pratt.
Yeah, everybody. I think to some, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but and maybe it's because of who I am, but a lot of the people I know and I respect, they're not. We would say extrovert. Um, I think introvertism is varying degrees, especially around your tribe, your culture, the city you might live in. Like New York, it's hard to be introvert. I think I what do you call it? I perfected the art of being introverted in public spaces because in New York you really you're on the subway, your favorite spot is 60 people in front of you. You're like people are always there. But there are moments in time in New York which I relish, like early Sunday morning
Mhm.
or late night, like a Monday or Tuesday night. There's these moments where you can walk down 125th Street, you can walk down Fulton Street in Brooklyn, Jerome Avenue, and it's like you and like five people on the block, and you're like, in a city of 8 million or 10 million or whatever it was, 12 million,
Yep.
it's just five people. It's like, woo, that was. So anywho, yeah. So I think today a lot of people, especially we'll say over the last few years, where we've been through the pandemic, and now the political upheaval, um, more people I think are relishing their privacy and their their safe spaces. So I think introvertism is on a rise, or people who will see themselves maybe not in the '90s, maybe not in the early 2000s, but now they may see themselves as introverts.
I agree. Um, well, for me, I didn't. It wasn't until about 2020 during the pandemic that I learned the term introversion. Prior to that, I used to say I was shy, I was socially awkward, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel as if like when I use those terms, it was always missing something. And
Mm.
it wasn't until I read Susan Cain's book Quiet that I was like, I finally felt normal because, to your point, living in New York, like it's always like go, go, go. If everybody's always trying to go someplace or whatever have you. And so I think that pre-pandemic, introverts just learned how to exist in a extrovert world where
Mm-hmm.
we basically had to
Yep.
adopt an extroverted persona in order to basically just fit in. So we kind of like
Yes.
fit into the spaces so that we weren't ostracized, more than we've already felt. And I do believe that because we were on lockdown for such a long time, a lot of people embrace their introvertism more.
Yes.
And now, for at least I can speak for myself. Like, so during the pandemic, we're home. To your point, it was wonderful because it didn't matter what time of day or night. I could walk in the middle of the street. There were no cars. And I was like, oh. And it was just amazing. And so like it took a while to basically re-immerse myself back into the real world,
Hmm.
after we reopened. But I feel like re-entered a different person, because now I didn't feel weird, because now I knew that I was fine, like I was normal, right? Because it's just my personality trait.
Right.
I do think a lot of people think that we are weird beings when it as it pertains to the personality trait. It's just energy. Like introverts prefer to, well, not prefer, we get our energy from being alone. That's how we recharge, and that's how we're able to basically like just thrive. Unlike extroverts, they need to be around like a million and one people, because that's how they get their energy and that's how
Right.
they thrive. So, now that I've learned that, it's easier for me to basically thrive, right, in a quiet space. And even in New York, as crowded as it is, I'm able to basically I can sit in the middle of a crowd and be okay with not interacting with anyone, and just basically have my headsets on it in my own space.
Yes. And also, I think introvertism, saved lives during COVID. People who weren't used to being 6 feet away, whereas we'll say introverts may have been used to being 10 feet away. So, like, yeah, personal space got perfected
Yes.
during COVID.
Yes. And that was a good thing. I remember seeing memes about how introverts were already appreciating, basically being locked down. So, have it being told that we had to do it for us, was like,
Hmm.
it
Hmm. Hmm.
was like,
Like,
wow,
welcome
but
to my
yeah.
world. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, just today, I was looking at a software that does co-working introvertedly.
Mm-hmm.
So typically co-working, you just go to a co-working space, you're around people, they're in your face and stuff. But I like the commercial where, like, sometimes the coffee isn't good, or people ask weird questions. Not everybody is kind of on the same wavelength when you're doing a co-working space. And so this software purports, we'll see, I've never used it, and I want to see what other competitors are out there, but it purports to find like-minded individuals who are in starting their companies like you might be, or working, and then it puts you in the same cohort on a Zoom like interface, and has all the trappings of co-working, which is like, have these crazy what do you call it, brainstorming sessions, um, around the certain times people do around a what do you call it, around a water cooler type of conversation. And so it has this, it's a purport to take the best out of co-working, but lets you stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this is like they have their advertising almost perfect. The next thing that to me can perfect it would be this, to talk to introverts and be like, look, you actually don't have to talk to people, or
Right.
you can, or it's like it would really be, I think, a real funny coup. But at the same time, I think that I get it. I've had co-working for a very long time, and um, I don't know that is all that is cracked up to be after the years of being in co-working spaces. And um, the addresses was what I really paid for, to have that address on that block, on that street.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there will, I'm trying to think real quick on top of my head. In the early days, I did get a lot of business from being in a co-working space. But then, sort of towards the mid 2015, 16, and further, it's just everywhere. They were everywhere, and I don't think I got any real business from the co-working space. But, and this is interesting for introverts, um, the app for WeWork, the WeWork app, you can post on the app, I have this whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and or I'm looking for this whatever, and because the app is such that you could post in Chicago even if you're in New York, or you could post in Beverly Hills, even if you're in, I don't know, China, and you could talk to people in that co-working space through the app.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are constantly posting, "Oh, I need an accountant," or "I need somebody with graphics," or whatever. And that really, to me, was one of the better proponents of WeWork was their app that allowed me to communicate globally to other WeWorkers. So, I think that with where Zoom is at, where we're at, even with podcasting, I think the one-on-one like we're doing podcast is something that is going to stick around. But what's coming though are these live podcasts, and I think that it sounds cool and it's nice, but it's like production, any other production. It's a lot of work. You gotta get up, you gotta get go in front of the audience, find a space, get the audience, get the tickets, get service free, all the stuff, and then do the actual podcast. I think eventually people are going to burn out of that and come back to this format. But we'll see. Everything is always the trends and everything.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny because pre-COVID, right? A lot of people were not exploring this. At least it's nothing ever that I thought that I would ever do is have a YouTube channel, let alone, like do a podcast. But I think that as we grow to learn, at least I'll speak for myself, as I grow to learn more about myself, I realize the importance of having podcasts, right? Because we're all, living our journey and we all have something to share. So it's interesting that, pre-COVID, a lot of corporations basically like declined anyone working from home, right? You had to have like a real like dire need. And now it's a thing. So to go back to rework, you could be anywhere in the world and have, like basically work for any company,
right?
Because you're home. And I think that this is one of the benefits for people who are introverted because, I don't know, I think during COVID, in addition to the pandemic itself, there's so many people who were depressed and there were a lot of things, right? So a lot of therapy was needed in order to basically like just figure out who you are and reimmerse yourself back into society. And my experience now with corporate America is that it's easier for me because I now feel empowered to accept things that I choose to accept and basically not accept things that I don't accept. So I literally feel like when I walk into spaces, I walk like God sent me, right? So I'm the only one in the office that wear heels and dress up and all that. But it's because of the way that I was brought up. But now I walk more sure of myself because I know who I am. There was a point in time when I felt very uncomfortable in the workspace. One, I'm a woman. Two, I'm black. And, 3, West Indian. And so I've always felt uncomfortable in the corporate space. But now I feel uncomfortable for other reasons because of what's going on in the world today.
Yes.
But as it pertains to me being an introvert, I'm not, because now I know who I am. So now, I was saying to my mother today that I now realize that, when you realize that you do not need someone to validate who you are, it is the most amazing thing, because it doesn't matter what they say. Because there are times I feel like, especially as females, we go through life saying, like, I don't care. Well, we do. But I'm at a space now where I really don't care what people say about my curly hair, about, my quirky laugh, like whatever it is that I do, because I validate myself.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the most important things for introverts to do, is just to learn how to love yourself, and not worry about what people say. Because, I don't know, for me, like, I'm enjoying my journey of life more because I'm now bringing meaning to it. Like getting up in the mornings is a bone. Because I don't know, life is a journey. And about a few weeks ago, I woke up one morning, I was like, oh my gosh, I just figured out the meaning of life. And it was so weird, because I'm truly in a space now where I'm happy. but it's because I chose to do things that were uncomfortable, right? I chose
Gotcha.
to invest in myself. I chose to step way outside of my comfort zone
Right.
and participate in certain spaces, which is where I met you. Um, and my goal eventually is to have a community where I can assist other introverts who would like to figure it out, right? Because it's not easy. Like when I look
Right.
back and I think about all the things that I wanted to do or thought about doing, I was like, oh no, I need somebody to do that for me, including social media. But I was telling a friend today that all the times when I used to say, I need your help, I realized that you couldn't do it for me, because if you did it for me, then I would never be able to do it for myself.
Right.
So yeah, so I do appreciate having this, because if not for, these tools, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now.
Right. Right. And I think that, as we get older, um, something I wish they told us when we were 12 or 11, um, was that you're you're going to have to make a decision about how you show up, and it's going to be up to just you.
Yeah.
In other words, even though jobs and situations can propel you forward to step out there and become more assertive, or take the reins for your own future.
Hmm.
It's not like you think you have a choice, and you're like, I could choose to not do that. And you do have a choice in a sense that you could choose not to do it, but honestly, there is really no choice. And so, like, the sooner you get to that point, the sooner you can, and people, well, at least our generation, I would say my generation, we believe, the X generation X, that we had license and agency to, show up how we wanted to show up. If we want to take a gap year off from college, you could do that. If you want to do this, you could do that. But there were consequences, and I don't think that we really were alerted to the consequences, and how far, by not facing whatever insecurity you might have, or whatever um, inauthentic way we might be living, when we face ourselves and face it, being authentically who you are, which is where society is at right now, right?
Hmm.
Any kind of ism or any kind of deficiency is embraced. It wasn't 20 years ago, it wasn't 30 years ago, and there wasn't even names for it at
Yeah.
all. But now there is, and so that there's a change in society. But I also think, even within not changing in society, like had I embraced this in 2015 or 2016, I could have been a little bit further along, because I've always wanted to be in the background, similar
Hmm.
to you, and at the same time, I don't really want people to know me per se. I want them to know the work that they're capable of doing, because they hire me, or because um, I coach them. And so it's less about me and more about the person, the client. And at the same time, you kind of have to wear both hats. You kind of have to be a self promoter. Not kind of. You have to be a self promoter, and or promote the platform you have, the business you have, the information you have. At some point, you're gonna have to self promote, and
Hmm.
the quicker you can get to that space, the better
Yeah.
it is. Versus the putting it off, or like, oh, I'll wait till I retire, or I'll wait to this thing. Whenever I get to this level, then I'll step out. I'll write the book. I'll do the speaking gigs. I'll do all that stuff. But as and I think my generation, particularly a generation ahead of me, did really bad at getting people out of their comfort zone. I remember being thrown in the deep end of the swimming pool and told to swim or drown, and by one of my cousins, older cousins, and my father jumped in and saved my life, because I wasn't going to swim. I just was like, well, I'm dying. I just sank. And my father was like, he was like, you can't just sink. I think I was 8 or 7. I was like, well, I'm not swimming because I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Water's in my nose, in my ear. They were like, you're swallowing water. Like, like, I just don't. It wasn't for me. I have a aborted baby. My daughter, she floats. She's like the total opposite. She just loves water.
Yeah.
But so my point is just that sink or swim thing that was done a lot of times, and when I was growing up, for different situations, it didn't translate over into how we show up authentically as ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that was the goal, but there was nobody. There was a disconnect, and there was nobody really, connecting that process. And that's why I'm excited about what you're doing with, Society of Introverts, and also like these type of T-shirts.
Thank you.
Because I think that the gap between I know I need to step out there and be more, especially now, where we are in society now, you have to self-promote. You have to speak up. You have to assert yourself. You're not going to make it if you don't.
I agree.
This is not happening. And then, so the gap between not being assertive and self-promoting, and then finding your tribe, finding your community, developing a routine, and embracing, not you gotta embrace everybody, but embracing people that you feel comfortable embracing.
Absolutely.
That gap there, what you're developing with Society of Introverts, I think, will one, be a great stepping stone for people, but two, I think life, 50 years from now or 60 years from now, it'll be one of those like Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always think about what was the first Toastmasters like, and somebody said, pastors can speak, politicians can speak. Why does the groundskeeper need to speak? Why does the and what was that argument like on that first developing Toastmasters?
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the other things I was thinking about that I did want to talk about a little bit was this concept of what you're saying about COVID. I hadn't spoken in front of people. I'm used to speaking on video, but I haven't spoken in person in front of people. So I had to go to court the other day, and I had to speak up for myself. And I don't think I did a great job. Everything worked out wonderfully. But it wasn't because I spoke up, I was assertive or... so I think one of the things that reminded me of was practice, practice, practice. And no matter how old you are, no matter how accomplished you are, I don't think that practice can be bad.
No.
I think that practicing can definitely help. And especially if you're going to unknown environment, an unknown... and you have a desire in your heart, you have an overwhelming heart that wants to make sure that whatever it is you desire, that's what you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
So in that space of practicing and standing in front of the mirror or letting someone else hear you, and projecting, like being able to increase the volume, regardless of the microphone in the room or not. Being able to do that, and which is so easy for me to hear. But when I went to court, judge was like, "So, Mr. Pratt," I was like, "Yeah, and so I was really thinking about what solutions there could be." So the judge cut me off like 3 times because I my way through it.
Yeah.
And then 2, I wasn't assertive. I wasn't really, and I think that the judge fortunately, I was fortunate that the judge was a mediator versus a judge who's just like, I'm ruling your favor. I'm ruling the other person's favor,
Mm-hmm.
Which they did do, but they mediated the situation while they did that. So it was a good outcome. But I just realized that I hadn't really spoken in front of people since 2020. Last time I had to give a pitch. I was in a pitch competition, and I pitched a business that I wanted to do in Philadelphia. And Facebook was there, Google was there, and I was successful. I was number 2 in the pitch competition. So I was thinking about the other day. I was like, how many times did I practice that pitch competition versus how many times did I practice going to court? This is,
Right.
I had to practice it out. I was like, I'm good. I do Zooms all the time. So, and yeah, it's different in person. It's completely different.
It is, and I'm actually going to touch on a few things that you said in the same order. So the first one was, if our parents had told us, like what to expect in life. A number of years ago, I remember I was at work. This could be like 10, 15 years ago. I don't remember what I was going through in life at the time, but I was just depressed and I was just like, this ain't it. And I called my mother from my office bawling. And she used to live in Jersey at the time, and she was like, and I was like, why did you tell me that life was going to be so hard? And she said, I did. And I said, no, you didn't. You just told me to go to school and study my lesson. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, but that's not it. And, like, that's when I realized that, life isn't about going to school and study a lesson. Life is life. So that's one thing, because I don't want to, go too far. And then the next one was the swimming. I nearly drowned 3 times in my life.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
Once was when I was in the Girl Scouts, and the Girl Scout leader had a barbecue at her home. This is in New Jersey. And I can't remember, but my sister and I might have been the only black.
Always something about somebody's barbecue. It's always something about the barbecue.
Yes, right? So like your daughter, my sister is a fish. Like, people say to me, you come from Jamaica, you can't swim. And I'm like, it's an island. We were not in the water. It makes no sense, right? Makes no sense. So anyway, they wanted us to have a buddy, right? So I told them from the beginning, I cannot swim, right? So there was another little girl who didn't want to swim. And so she said, okay, I'll be her buddy. My sister had another buddy because my sister swims. So at some point during the day, the person who was my buddy decided that she wanted to swim. So my sister was forced to be my buddy. Okay, fine. So then for whatever reason, the troop leader decided that she wanted to test those of us who said we can't swim to get in the water. I get in the water, and I had on, I'll never forget, it was a red tube top, and it didn't have strings, right? I was flat chested at the time, so it didn't matter. But it was all the girls and her sons or whatever have you. We were all young. I get in the water, and she said swim, and like you, I'm like, what does that mean? So I start right, and they put like this long pole in the water, and she's like, grab on. The hell you telling me to grab on to? I can't swim. Right. So they took me out of the water. The top was down because it basically like just came down, and because I was young, so I can't say that I was embarrassed. I was just annoyed because I'm like, I told you I can't swim.
Right. Right. Why would you do something to me that?
Yeah, it's traumatizing.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like, now that I'm saying it, I feel like that's how some of us probably decided to just lose our voice over the years. Because if I'm telling you this, you're not listening, then why bother? The next time was in high school. That wasn't as devastating, but my story, similar to yours, was I was in Jamaica. We went to the beach, and my girlfriend rested at my best friend at the time, Joyce. She decided to pull me out into the water until I was on my tippy toe, and then she let me go, and she swam away. Wow. And I'm like, I started to do all this, and she's there. I see her there, she's laughing. I'm like, I'm about to die, and this heifer laughing.
Right.
And thank God that my cousin, who's also deceased, now rested dead, he saw it, he came over, he rescued me. I was so upset with my friend. And she said, and I was like, why would you do that? And she was like, well, that's how they taught us to swim back in Grenada. And I'm like, well, this ain't Grenada. Because she said when she was younger, they took them out on a little boat and basically pushed them over the side. And I'm like, well, that's just not how that's just wrong. And that's just not how it works. Yeah. So, and I think that, to your point, that is the sink or swim. But my thing is, I'm going to need instructions. Some of us need instructions.
and as much as I don't like to revisit, I really don't like to revisit the 70s and 80s just because. But, like, I think that one of the traumatic things that was, no matter what TV show you watched, I'm trying to think of the example of a TV show. but like not that '70s show because that was too close to the 2000s. But stuff that was genuinely in the Family Matters or something, not Family Matters, but the one with Michael J. Fox.
Family ties.
Yeah, Family Ties. Thank you. There was always some kind of life lesson that could have easily been avoided if the person had wanted to have emotional like there was an overwhelming desire. It felt like that people would just say, "I'm gonna take your license agency away from you, and you're gonna do what I think you should be able to do." And that process was, I don't think anybody has really researched or went through that because we have a lot of to deal with. But maybe there'll be some point, some historian somewhere will go, Gen X was amazing because they had all their license agencies taken. Like they had this, they had that, had that. But honestly, they didn't have their own. Where I look at millennials and I look at Gen Z and go, they have way too many choices. That said, I think they should have choices. I'm not saying you shouldn't have choices, but I think it's it's overkill. But at the same time, I have that. When you were talking, it made me think about, how we're indoctrinated in. I went through this, so you should too. And it's like,
Right.
why? It's like when I got married to my wife. Now, I was married 3 times before. What I learned from those, I was married very young at 19, and then again at 20, 26. And then I did I will say a business arrangement marriage. And so that doesn't really count. But the 19 and 26 really taught me that I don't want to be with somebody who doesn't have or who didn't have the same the same advantages I had. And if I can, I want to give my wife or my partner that same blessing I had. So I had 10 years from 26 to about 37, 38-ish to really figure me out and not come with the same baggage that I came to the second marriage with. And in that time frame, I really realized a bunch of things about myself. But again, my point is that nobody was there to take a license and agency away from me. It was just me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
And when you get to that space where it's just, I was thinking when you was talking, I was also thinking about, I had this one gig, I was a superintendent of a building. So I had to super the building, I took care of the, snow, the sweeping the stairs, all that stuff. Lights out, bulbs changed, so nothing really big. I didn't do any plumbing or any kind of, locksmith stuff, just mopping, take care of the building. Anyway, it's a very solitary life. And then at the same time, I was running my aunt's bookstore. The bookstore was a block away, so it was like the bookstore, the building, and then I had a radio show. Mm-hmm. So I was in a bubble of meism which was perfect for introverts, because the bookstore, nobody comes in from like 9 to 3. The kids get out of school. That's you start getting customers. You might get 1 or 2 customers in. But so I was very much alone all the time. And in that space of being alone, I realized that I started thinking about how many times somebody told me, "You're going to end up this if you don't do that." And I was laughing to myself because I'm on 156 in Amsterdam. That's considered Washington Heights. I'm not in New Jersey where I grew up at. I'm running a building. I'm running a bookstore, and I have a radio show on FM radio every Monday night. And I said, "Look at me." My guidance counselor, I think in high school, said, they didn't say you'll never amount to anything, but it just said basically like you're wasting your opportunities. And that was because I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to go to the program they had was you matriculated. You went 11th grade to Essex County. Essex County College, which is a 2-year college. And then you could matriculate from there to Rutgers, which is a 4-year college. So I was like, nah, I'm good. I was so tired, and I was thinking about it when you were talking, like how many times people said, "You're going to do this." And I was like, no, I'm not. But I didn't have necessarily the voice to say I'm not. I just was like, yeah, how do I get out of this? So like it meant like I did something stupid and I got put in detention or whatever the thing was. Like, oh, you're gonna be in what do you call it, debate. And I was like, no, I'm not. They're like, you're an excellent orator. Yeah, I am, but I'm not going to debate anybody. I just
Right.
don't have the energy. It was like going to stay. So like, no, you are. We're going to put you in, and that was it. That was the principal putting me in debate. And so I made sure I messed up, and the teacher was so mad at me, kept me up to this, and like, I have to go to debate. Like, no, you're not. You're going to stay here. I was like, yeah, okay.
You can force a horse to water.
Exactly. One last thing, I decided to become an entrepreneur when I realized that there was a lot of money in contracting. And so the nonprofit I work for, I put in my 30-day notice. They rejected it. So when you were talking, I was like, man, there's a lot of times that in the 80s or 90s, really, that was the 90s, but that whole 70s, 80s, 90s where people just snatch stuff from you. Just like,
Yeah.
we know better than you do. And I was stupid because I didn't know that they couldn't reject it. I just was like, this was my first real job where people cared. I had a couple of jobs before that. They were crappy. But this job was excellent pay. It was 6 weeks vacation. It was just really good. Yeah, it was a really good job. But I was, they felt I was making a mistake, and I kind of was. I learned that I did kind of make a mistake by leaving that. They actually made it so I could consult, and I could go to the I could consult outside, and I could come in. But they were also made it so that where I had to consult. I had to come in for 5 hours a day, which meant almost no time to go see clients.
Mm-hmm.
So the contract says, as a consultant to the nonprofit, if I was absent for 3 days, if I didn't call in or didn't know nothing, then the contract was automatically cut, and it was over. So of course I didn't show up for 3 days.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah, and so the guy who did it, I guess you would say like the operations person, he was, upset, but he was smirking at the same time. He was like, I should have known. I should have just let you go, And he was like, but you're missing out on steady money versus this contract money that's going to come and it's going to be good now, but then it's going to. And I was hearing him, but I was like, I'm gonna have multiple, and I always had multiple things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, my point is just saying that was a thing. I don't see that being the case anymore. That people are just going to snatch your license to agency away from you. I do think that there's way more serious negative things that are being done because of our skin color, or because of your gender, or because of your sexual orientation. So it's worse, I guess, the snatching. But maybe it's a different way that people are really looking to say, how do I shut this other human down? But I definitely say the 70s, 80s, and 90s was really about, for introvertism at least, to me, it was about, nope, you're not going to shut up. You're not going to, you don't get the right to just be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny because going back to what you said earlier about when you went to court and not having a voice, right? And I think that for the past maybe 2.5 years, I feel like I've been doing what you described, which was speaking more so that I can get comfortable, right? So I think that when I chose to embrace Instagram, and I do like that because I really don't love social media, but I do understand the purpose of it and the benefit. And the reality of it is, because I was going on and still do morning messages. I am the introvert whisperer is my handle.
Yes.
And by doing those messages, I learned to like my voice, because I never used to like my voice. And when I was younger, I used to speak so I'm Jamaican, so I talk fast anyway. But my mom used to be like, what? Because I used to talk fast, but then I used to talk very low. So she's like, you talk like you're eating hot food. And when she said that, it made me feel bad, but it made me not want to talk at all, because my thing is, I'm going to need you to listen faster, because I don't feel like talking anyway.
Right, right. It's not something I want to do anyway. So
Yeah, but because of social media, I've learned to use my well, first learn to appreciate the fact that I do have a voice, and then I've learned to how to use it. And I'm learning how to just take up space. Whether it's on Zoom, I'm learning how to the importance of having your camera on
hmm
and raising hand where necessary, because I think for most of my life I chose to be on mute. But I do realize and recognize that I'm at a place in my life now where that's not an option,
mm,
because they say a closed mouth is never fed.
right.
That's a fact. And the fact is, the climate that we're in America now, you need to have a voice, right? Like in the workplace, I recognize that on my team, I do feel like the odd man out for
Mm.
all of the above reasons. But once upon a time, I used to be uncomfortable and felt a little way about it, and now I don't.
Oh
Like
no, you're
now
doing good.
I feel as if, like, in my
No.
own quiet way, I'm walking loud and proud and saying,
Mm.
I don't care. I don't care that I don't fit in. Because the reality of it is, I think that that's a way of me taking my power back.
Right.
Because I feel like for so many years I allowed people in the corporate scene to basically say things that were unkind or do things that were unkind,
Mm,
or
mm.
just made me feel uncomfortable. And now it's like, oh, I don't care. Like I'm a walking, and I, like, cause the thing about me is, like, I do still respect management and, those who respect me,
Right,
but I'm
right.
not going out of my way to basically do things that I used to do.
Exactly.
I'm no longer basically working beyond the hour that I'm being paid to work, like work for. Why?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm grateful because I'm choosing to allow myself to walk outside of the comfort of the zone that was comfortable to me, so that I can basically build my brand. And in so learn who I am, because I have a choice. I can either choose to stay in my nice little cozy spot, or choose to come out knowing fully
Yeah.
well that that cozy spot is still there, so that I can explore this big world. um you know Choosing to invest in myself and joining um the mentorship programs that I have for the past few years, it has allowed me to basically enter a space that I didn't previously know, and meet people who, well, obviously I didn't know them before,
Right,
before,
right.
right? But it's also allowing me to see Antonia rise. And for me, like, the most beautiful thing to hear is when someone who met me in 2022 in the mentorship program are like, oh my gosh, because they're like, they see my change. And I
Yep.
think for me, it is a wonderful compliment to show that I am working on myself, and I'm choosing to do so, because it isn't. And I tell people, like, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. Like, it's not easy to get up every day and do this thing, but I bet on myself. Like, like, I'm grateful that God has given me the gifts, and
Right.
now that I have recognized what my gifts are, like, I want to basically share them, because that's what they're there for. So yeah.
Got it. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I feel like this is a good place for us to pause and maybe even come back and do a part two later on after we've, because you gave me a lot to think about
Hmm.
and tap into when it comes to why introverts end up where they are, and then how do you move, what tools. So for instance, like when you were talking about this mentorship, something inside you said you should do that,
Yep.
and um, you know discovering, okay, my introvertism might be holding me back, maybe I should. What led to that, how you kind of configured that, where did that come from? um, so maybe this is a good pause spot for us, and then we come back and um, it doesn't have to be next episode, but it could be further down the road, so to speak. But
Hmm.
I'm curious to hear what other people who join you in this journey, what they will say about, especially those of us of a certain age group. Um, I'm wondering how they traversed their introvertism, and who in their life took away their license agency and how they grabbed it back.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an interesting conversation, because I don't know. I just feel as if we're at a very interesting time in our lives now, and I'm gonna pull Kendrick in here
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
I feel like Kendrick is proof that introverts can, right? And I don't know why, because there's so many other people. You have Oprah Winfrey, you have President Obama, but I think because Kendrick is like the latest hot topic.
Yeah.
Kendrick to me, and I will say that before this beef, I heard his name, but I didn't really. I wasn't into the music, right? Because I'm more soca and more reggae, whatever
Okay.
have you,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
and 90s hip hop. But let me tell you, I became like the biggest Kendrick fan. And it's not because of the content, it's because of who he is. He's
Hmm.
an introvert, right? Who, based on what I have learned, has been minding his business way over there.
Yep.
And forever they keep poking at the bear, poking at the bear. And in true introvert fashion, it's like, rah, and he ain't stopped.
Right.
He
Right.
hasn't
Right.
stopped. And I
Just kept
think
going.
that's what
Kept
it
going.
is. Like, we find our voice. It's always been
Yeah.
there. We tell people, all right, stop. And I'm going to end here because I remember back in high school, there was a young man who sat behind me. He kept poking me, poking me. He was just messing with me. And I kept saying, stop, stop. And I had a pencil in my hand and I turned around and I stabbed him in his head. I was like, I told you to stop. And, I think that's just how it is. Like, and we're quiet for a reason, right?
Yeah.
We're quiet because, well, sometimes we internalize and we overthink everything. But I think now we're all starting to basically like just roar like Kendrick.
That's true. That's a good point. The collective raw.
Yeah.
I like that.
So
Yeah.
thank you, Dr.
You're
Pratt.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for inviting me on this journey so that I can
This is
take
all
another
you,
step
woman. This is
in
all
my
you,
journey.
Antonia.
I truly appreciate you. So, listeners, watchers, this is going to be a weekly treat. The plan is to record and basically drop the videos on Fridays.
Yes.
And so, we're gonna get to a point where we have live, so you can join us, and join in the chat. But until then, please comment below and let me know what your experience has been on your introvert journey, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life. Um, yeah, Dr. Pratt, do you have any parting words?
No, I just say I think this is important for everybody to really self analyze and take a moment to be to sit with yourself and to find out what is it that are you really want to do, and then after you do that, what is it you're willing to do? So stuff you want to do, and then some stuff that you like. I'm not gonna. I want to do that, but I'm not gonna. But that process of giving, I think, anything going forward in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, I think it's going to really require you to be passionate about
Yeah.
and purposeful and also mindful. But we haven't really given, I don't think we've given ourselves the right to request that information from ourselves as a community. I think,
Right.
or as a collective, like the collective raw, I think that's where we're at. And I don't know that I hear many people. I hear women saying, self care and take rest, and the National Rest Day for Black women. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily hearing people say, "Hey, take an assessment, take a pause, and sit with yourself, and find out who or what is in your heart,
Mm-hmm.
and then decide to not so much what's in your head, but what's in your heart." Recently, I really understood was given a video that really talked about the heart and how much power the heart, how much electrical charge the heart has to have to keep pumping. And whereas you think about your brain, it's very low electrical charge comes to the brain. But yet we stay, we get a headache. We stay in our head so much. But the heart is just pumping, doing what it's got to do. You ask the heart the question, the heart goes, I got to do this, I want to do that. And then the heart is pumping. So it's like, and that there's no back and forth. Because the heart has a lot of stuff to do. So it's like, I don't have time to be going back and forth with you. This is what I want to do, and that's that. So I think, taking an assessment of self-assessing and saying, what's in my heart? What is it I want to do and
Yeah.
what is it I'm willing to do? I think that's going to really be key to going forward and succeeding in this space
Yes.
of upheaval.
Yes. I agree. I think that it is very important to figure out what it is that you want to do and to do it because
That part.
yeah, I mean, and I think that because I'm still working on what it is that I want to do, but I'm doing it. Like
Yes,
the
you
one
are.
thing that I want to do is basically have control of what it is that I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm doing that. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for that, Dr. Pratt.
Amen. Amen.
All right, well, thank you for joining Antonia's Blissful Corner. We do hope that you enjoy this conversation, and please again join in the comments below. Please like, share. If you have not already, please subscribe, because like this is our time. It's our time to shine.
Amen.
All right, so take care. Thank you. Until next time.
Bye bye, everybody.